When a roller coaster enthusiast takes a trip to Pennsylvania, they likely will find themselves at places like Hershey Park, Kennywood, Knoebels, and even Dorney Park. Waldameer Park is likely the fifth name mentioned, and sometimes it's buried even deeper down the to-do list for coaster enthusiasts. Well, I'm here to tell you that Waldameer Park is not a place you should skip when you go to Pennsylvania. In fact, the park is slowly building itself year by year to become one of the best family-owned amusement parks in the country. And I think it's about time someone starts talking about it. So today, I'll be talking about all the things I like about Waldameer, what the park has been doing over the past few years to improve, and their under-the-radar $50 million investment plan to move Waldameer into the top tier of parks in the region. Now before I do that, make sure to do me a favor by liking this video, as that is the main way to help out the channel beat the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you enjoy amusement park content, make sure to subscribe to Amusementscape for more videos just like this coming very soon. Now let's first start off by talking about all the major rides and attractions this park has to offer. Starting with the roller coasters, we first have the park's flagship attraction, Ravine Flyer II. This is a 2008 Gravity Group wooden coaster that was built after a nearly decade-long legal battle. This debate was centered around the plan for this coaster to cross over PA Route 832, which is one of the ride's marquee elements. It was also built on the same site as the original Ravine Flyer, which operated from 1922 to 1938. The history and ride experience could probably warrant a whole video on its own, so shoot me a comment down below if you'd like to see that. But long story short, it's a really good ride. The terrain usage and layout design of this coaster is excellent, and it hits you with tons of airtime. The view from the top is absolutely spectacular as it sits on a hill over Lake Erie. The largest steel coaster in the park is Steel Dragon, which is a Maurer spinning coaster. It's a pretty standard ride, as you can find clones of it all across the country, and even at nearby parks like Seabreeze and Hershey Park, but nonetheless, it's a fun ride. The other wooden coaster at the park is Comet, which is a PTC creation that opened back in 1951. It's only 37 feet tall, so it's good for younger kids and families, but you may get a pop of airtime or two if you're lucky. The park also has a couple of kids coasters in Ravine Flyer III, a very aesthetically pleasing E&F Miler coaster, and Whirlwind, a standard SBF spinning coaster. There's also a pretty good selection of flat rides here too, the largest being X-Screen, the park's Larson drop tower. I've always thought that Larson produces some of the best drop towers on the market. They are not too tall, but the trick is that there's a cover on the top of the ride vehicle blocking your view of the tower, so you don't really know when you are about to drop. Also, the brakes on this ride are freakishly close to the ground, so it feels like you're dropping just a little bit too long. But that's all part of the fun. Chaos is one of the park's newest rides, which is a Zamperla Discovery Revolution. It's a small frisbee ride, but it's the only ride in the park that takes you upside down. It pulls some good forces and fits really well into the park. The rest of their flat rides are pretty standard off-the-shelf attractions that you can find at other parks, but they all fit nicely into the lineup. They have a Zamperla Disco, an Alibaba, a family swing ride, a Music Express, Scrambler, Pirate Ship, Chance Wipeout, among many others. There's also a couple notable family rides here, like a Ferris wheel, which provides great views of Lake Erie and Ravine Flyer II, along with a sky ride that basically takes you across the entire midway of the park, and it gets you pretty close and personal with some of the rides. The park has a classic ghost train with Wacky Shack, which is always a good time. There's also a walkthrough attraction with Pirates Cove, but these are definitely the kind of rides you'd expect a classical amusement park to have, and their presence on the midway alone really helps to add to the charm of the park. The park's only water ride is Thunder River, which just got a refurbishment this season. It's a pretty good log flume with 2 drops. Speaking of water attractions, let's talk about the other half of the park, which is Waterworld. Waterworld is a huge attendance driver for the park, as it's always really busy whenever I go, even though it's a relatively small water park. That also goes for the whole park in general. It does not take you very long to walk from one end of the park to another, but there's still a lot packed into it. They've really invested heavily into the water park recently, especially with their new for 2023 water coaster, Rocket Blaster. This ride cost a whopping $7.5 million, and that cost likely had to do with the fact that they had to work really hard to squeeze it in the park, as they weaved it around all the existing slides in the park. It's also one of the tallest rides in the entire park, as it's over 60 feet tall. It was certainly a huge hit with the public as the line was near the bottom of the staircase when I went to the water park in 2023. But it also moved pretty quick too, which was nice. In terms of experience, I didn't get too much airtime, but it felt pretty fast, and the way they packed it into such a small space created some great near miss elements. They also added a mat racer back in 2020, and those are always a good time, and again, they certainly had to work hard to squeeze that in. They also have a bowl slide along with some other tube slides. There's some old school body slides called Bermuda Triangle that shoot you out into the pool at the end, which is always a lot of fun. Besides that, they have a lazy river, wave pool, kids play area, and a heated pool. Like I said earlier, it's a small water park, but they pack a lot in. If you're planning to stay here for a half day or longer, I'd recommend checking the water park out. As you can tell already, Waldameer boasts a pretty solid lineup of attractions at a reasonable price. The park is definitely family oriented, but there's a good amount of high thrill rides for a park of this size. Despite the park's land being pretty limited, they've set their sights on expansion. Following a rough couple of years brought on by the pandemic, the park's owner, Paul Nelson, went on record saying that he and his family were planning to invest $50 million into the park over the next 10 years as long as the park recovered in 2022 and beyond. Luckily, the park had its best financial year ever in 2022, which led to the announcement of the $7.5 million Rocket Blast. Sadly, right before the attraction opened, Paul Nelson passed away after owning the park for 58 years and working at the park for a total of 78 years. His daughter, Nancy, assumed ownership of the park with his son-in-law, Steve Gorman, remaining as general manager. In 2023, the park moved to purchase a trailer park adjacent to the park for $2.65 million, along with another $1.5 million being invested in general improvements for this season. In 2025, the park added Time Twister. Time Twister is a Zamperla Nebula Z attraction, which I think is an excellent addition for the park. I've done a couple of these rides, and they not only give a pretty fun ride experience, but they also are really cool to watch off-ride. This ride is being added at the expense of Spider, which was a pretty outdated flat ride. In other news, Paratrooper is undergoing a refurbishment and will be relocated in the future. This is because Waterworld will be getting a new entrance and a new retail and food building. Time Twister itself will cost $1.58 million before installation fees, but I'd estimate along with the Waterworld improvements, the investment in the park this year will be about $3 million. I think the next move for the park will be to clear the trailer park land they purchased. They've already given a notice to residents to vacate the property by October 31st, likely with the intentions to begin incorporating that land into the park by next season. My guess is part of that land will be for the expansion of the parking lot, as the secondary parking lot is pretty cramped. I think the next step would be to reorganize the part of the park that borders the new land, which might include things like relocating the picnic pavilions to allow for better guest access. I think that part of the existing main parking lot would be incorporated to Waterworld, and they would use the new expanded area to help replace that, but any leftover space would probably be used for new rides. If the park's 10-year plan is still intact, which it appears to be given the success the park has experienced over the past few years, that leaves us with about $35 million for the park to spend over the next 7 years, which gives the park around $5 million per year to work with. I think whenever they get the new land situated, along with the next water park expansion, whenever that occurs, they'll have about $20 million left to spend over on rides. My hope is that they'll use some of this money to build a new roller coaster. My initial line of thinking for this potential project was to add a compact thrill coaster like an RMC Raptor. But the more I thought about it, I'm thinking something more along the lines of a family thrill coaster. The park's primary audience is families, and they already have a standout thrill coaster in Ravine Flyer II. But beyond that, all they have is a cookie cutter spinning coaster, a small family coaster in Comet, and 2 kids coasters. I think something in between the thrill level of Ravine Flyer II and Steel Dragon would be perfect. My ideal pick for this attraction would be a low-to-the-ground Intamin straddle coaster. This would be a spectacular addition for the park for many reasons. First, Waldameer could customize this to fit the budget and the elements they are looking for. They could make it fit perfectly in the land they bought and theme it to whatever they wanted to, although a jet skiing theme would work pretty dang good. This ride would be one of, if not the most popular in the park, which would be fine because they'd be able to run 2 trains on it and make them as long as they want to adequately support their needs. They could also make parts of it more thrilling to add an appeal to thrill seekers to take multiple rides. A straddle coaster would be something extremely unique to the region, as there's nothing really like it anywhere near the park unless you count Moto Coaster. Intamin certainly makes some of the most intriguing roller coasters on the market, but I also think manufacturers like Zamperla, Gerstlauer, or Vekoma could make sense for this park as well. Plus, there's always the option of going a little bit bigger and more thrilling. A model like the Hot Racer would bring the same launching elements, but could also bring inversions, which is something that none of the roller coasters at the park have. We just learned that Waldameer is planning to add a new water world attraction in 2026 and a new amusement ride in 2027. That will mark 7 years since the park's last roller coaster edition and 19 years since Ravine Flyer II, the park's last major coaster edition. Hopefully, with the park's recent successes, this will be the park's signature steel coaster. But for now, I will be eagerly watching the park's future plans. It looks like we are about to enter some very exciting times for Waldameer. If you look at the past 15 years or so for this park and compare it to some of the other parks of this size that only operate just for a few months out of the year, you'll see that Waldameer has been expanding way faster. Even the much larger Six Flags Darien Lake just an hour and a half away has gotten less investment than Waldameer, and they are run by a multi-billion-dollar company. Regardless of what this park chooses to do in the future, I'll certainly be excited to see where they go next. For now, I recommend visiting and supporting the park. Ravine Flyer II is a top tier wooden coaster, and the rest of the park is very good in its own right. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more theme park content coming very soon. With all that being said, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.